All right. Well, welcome back to Marketing Mondays Mastery, or M Cubed, or maybe we won't call it that. But anyway, in today's webinar, we're going to discuss how to navigate the nuances of media relations and what mistakes to avoid, and then what proactively we can do. So essentially, how to use media relations the right way. So first, my name is PJ Warchansky. I am the PR manager and help with marketing programming here at Uplift. I'm also a full-time communication director at Appalachian State University here in Boone, Roll Nears, and a part-time adjunct in communications. And I've had the pleasure of working, mostly the pleasure of working in hospitality and tourism for the past 20 to 25 years. And then Kara Treadway, our other amazing host, is not able to join us today, but she will be back very soon. And so let's jump right in and look at today's blueprint. So first, we're going to talk a little bit about public relations. So we're going to step back just a little bit and talk about what it is. And then we'll get into how media relations fits into our overall public relations plan. And then we'll kind of dive into stories and what makes a story newsworthy. And then we want to pinpoint some specific ways to make sure that our goals, like our overall business goals, align with our media objectives. And then we'll talk about a few common mistakes, I'm sure I've made them, to avoid with media and pitches and your communication with them. And then we'll go through some additional tips on what you can do proactively as far as communication with the media. Then we'll cover, excuse me, timing, trends, and outlets, and then the right way to follow up. And then we'll circle back to key takeaways and then save a little bit of time for questions and answers, discussion. And as always, we're happy to set up a time to do a one-on-one with you when it's convenient for both of us. All right, so first of all, what is public relations? Well, according to the Public Relations Society of America, or PRSA, public relations is about influencing, engaging, and building a relationship with key stakeholders across a myriad of platforms in order to shape and frame the public perception of an organization. So the only thing that I would add to it personally is in order to ethically shape and frame the public perception of an organization, because you want that to be an ethical reason for them to have that perception. So now the process by which organizations communicate and engage with their stakeholders, including the general public, is another way to look at it. Now, the purpose of public relations is to build that credibility, that trust, and a positive reputation for the brand. So as PR professionals, we work to ethically control the narrative around an organization and to ethically influence how people think about us. We also are strategic in how we incorporate goals, excuse me, and intended outcomes to be able to reach our overall communication objectives. And so what are some of the benefits of public relations? Well, one, it boosts a business's reputation. It can also lead to better engagement, better relationships with our customers or guests. It also helps to boost public confidence. So as we work with public relations, in our public relations, we can also create a better community relationship. And so when people see us out and about, they have that positive image of our organization, our brand. And it also helps with employee recruiting and retention. If you've got a brand with a great reputation, you're more likely to attract people who want to work for you, stay with you, and that's always a good thing when you can lower that turnover, especially. All right, so how do media relations fit into the overall public relations plan? Well, media relations is a specific stakeholder and also a key aspect of public relations, which is focused specifically on securing earned media with the goal of positive coverage via the media outlets. So, favorable media relations, that helps to build that positive image also among the general public, the media, or or that agency is a way to positively contribute to our organization's narrative. And so the way that we as an organization can use public relations, that helps to develop that story, but then it goes to the media to get the word out through their channels. Now let's look at some of the differences, because a lot of times you'll see that public relations is used interchangeably with media relations, and that's not correct. Public relations encompasses the broader range of activities aimed at managing a brand's overall image and reputation. Media relations are the specific interactions with just the media to secure that coverage and be able to amplify a brand's message. Public relations uses a variety of channels, both internal, external communication. The media uses, well, the media, external communication mainly, and it has that added benefit of adding that third party validation to the message. So if you've got a credible source, whether it's an influencer, a journalist, and they're telling your story, that's where that credibility comes in. Now, all media relations is public relations, but not all public relations is media relations. Public relations shapes the message, and media relation amplifies it. Public relations is more of a long-term process. Excuse me, and media relations is mostly short-term. This is what we want to accomplish right now, or this is the story we're telling this year. Public relations starts internally, and media relations is more of the external push. Public relations is more strategic, and media relations is more tactical. And then public relations encompasses all stakeholder relationships. So that's employees, that's your guests, that's your shareholders, that's the community, even the non-human, the rivers and streams, if you have any impact on them. And then media relations are just those media relations only. So some examples of media relations that could include crafting compelling stories and pitching them to the journalists or creators, influencers, managing media inquiries. That's another media relations activity. Arranging interviews, coordinating press conferences, coordinating familiarization trips. Those are all part of media relations. All right, so now that we've covered kind of the differences between public relations and media relations and how media relations fits into your plan, what makes a story newsworthy? So, some things to be able to identify something that's newsworthy is to ask yourself a few questions. Is it quantitative or is it qualitative? If it's quantitative, whether it's this is our 25th year in business, this is our 100th anniversary, or if it's qualitative, like now we can accommodate overnight guests. Say you're a winery and you've added some tree houses, and so that's more of a qualitative newsworthy piece. Another thing to ask, is it trending online? Is this something that people are going to take notice and that's already in the news, and this will kind of be amplified because of that? And then why should our audience, or why should the media care right now? And is it timely? And then also understanding what journalists want and what their interests are. Just because somebody has 1 million followers or they have a publication that has a lot of readership doesn't mean that you're the right fit for it, or that story specifically is a good fit. All right, and then from the journalist perspective, you should be able to answer the following, like, why should the media care? Is this something that they, maybe they're into agritourism and they, specialize in stories about that, or maybe they're all about family travel. And so you want to make sure that you're not just targeting, journalists who focus on adults only, but also families. And then why right now? Why is it something that they should care about now? Is it seasonal, or is it an anniversary that's coming up, or is it a new offering that there's a need for? And then is it relevant for them? Is it something that fits within what they like to write about? Being able to identify a clear objective for using media relations to help tell this particular story, that is a great way to know that you're going to probably be able to accomplish your overall business goals. So that kind of leads us into being able to align your business goals with your media objectives. The key takeaway is that you don't really want to invest in media relations until you're, quote, guest ready. I know that I've worked for properties in the past where they really want journalists and people to come out to the property, but if you're not ready for that close-up, so to speak, you really should hold off until that's something that you're ready to do. So some of your must-haves as you're getting ready to do that is that you have a specific business or service objective. Whether it's offering the best guest experience, or you're family friendly and you really want to be able to get the word out because maybe you in the past have targeted retirees? Is it something that's share worthy? Is it profitable for your business? Is it a new product or service offering, or do you just want social media coverage to be able to gain new followers? And then second thing is you want to make sure that whatever it is that you're promoting is a concrete product or service. You don't want things to be confusing or ambiguous, or if the audience doesn't understand it, it's probably not going to be the best story to tell. Also, think about your positioning, your differentiating factor. Are you the first? Are you just doing it better? Or is this just something different? Have you kind of flipped the switch on, how you promote something? I'll never forget several years ago, when TripAdvisor was such a impactful source of reviews, and it still is to some degree, but there was a ski resort in Utah, and they posted all the bad reviews that focused on the fact that they just had too much snow and it was too advanced of terrain for their skiers, and that's who they were going after. So it was sort of flipping the switch. Instead of promoting themselves with good reviews, they were actually highlighting the bad reviews. But the bad reviews in turn were good because they were saying, well, they just get too much snow, or the snow's too deep, or the terrain is too steep. And the hardcore skiers were like, that's what I want. Anyway, kind of interesting the way they position themselves. Also, know your audience. Who is it that you're targeting? Where are they? When would they want to come see you? And then understand what success looks like for you. And this is about you and your business. Is it to have more social media followers? Is it to, expand your audiences so that you're targeting somebody new that you haven't in the past? And don't forget your current customers. You want to make sure you include them as well so they still feel loved. And, media relations is about value, not volume. I know that a lot of times you get excited, you want to cast this wide net, but targeting and niches is really a whole lot more impactful than just trying to send something out to the masses. So media relations within public relations is definitely an investment. And the right way to think about it is not that it's an expense. I know I worked for a property once where I had a journalist, and they wanted to come, and I said to the owner, hey, we really want to host them. And he's like, well, how much are they paying? And I'm like, well, they're not, because that's how this works. And he's like, well, I don't want to have to spend money on it. And I'm like, well, that's part of it. So it's an investment. It's another piece of like marketing investment. All right, so here are some common mistakes to avoid with the media relations. If you are the guest, the ambassador or the speaker, you want to make sure that you are prepared. You don't want to just get out there and speak in jargon or speak in marketing talk. You want to make sure that you are prepared and you've practiced and you have emotion. There's nothing worse than having somebody who doesn't fit your brand to be the one who's your representative, so to speak. You also want to think about choosing the right tone. Make sure that that you understand your brand's personality so that you write, speak, act, and offer a consistent message with fluency and knowledge and preparedness in your appearance. It's very confusing if you have a brand that's witty and friendly, and then the spokesperson doesn't fit into that category. Another one is big pitch failures. You don't want to miss out on opportunities. So you really want to actively monitor the news cycle, set Google alerts so you know what's going on. You don't want to have an opportunity to pitch something, and because with those you only have a few seconds to make a good impression. So you don't want long emails or long pitches or missing out on something because you're a week late or something like that. You also want to make sure you get the reporter or your contact's name correct, and don't make the mistake of throwing around buzzwords or inconsistencies or even things that are not factual. If you're not the world's first, or if you're not the only, don't put that in there, because then it just comes back to you and you're going to have to own up to it anyway. All right. Another mistake to avoid is not writing a concise pitch. Think about, our attention spans these days with so much information coming through our phones and computers, tablets, and just people talking to us. It has to be concise. You have to tell them very quickly why they should care. Is it solving something? Is it about a specific audience? You also want to personalize it so that you know you're reaching out to just them, or at least that they feel that it's about them and their writing needs. You want to edit it before you send it. Keep a consistent tone, or else it can be confusing. And then just clarify. That's the biggest thing is tell them what you want them to do. Just say it. Don't put a bunch of fluff around it. Just get right to the point. And a pro tip: so before reaching out to the media or talking to them on the phone, practice your key points and your messages. So even just getting in front of the mirror, record yourself, even meet with another colleague to make sure that you sound the way that you want to. All right, so we talked about some mistakes to avoid. Now let's look at some of the communication tips. And we talked a little bit about this, but I'm going to get into a bit more detail here. So obviously you want to double check that you've got the right person and the right name. And sometimes you even have to call if it's a newspaper or something like that. You don't want to assume that the name in the email is who it is that you're supposed to be contacting, because sometimes you might see a contact and that's not actually who you should be contacting. Double check their name. Maybe they've gotten married, maybe they've changed something. You want to make sure you've got the right information there. And you want to add their email address last. I know for me, a lot of times if I'm writing a pitch, I'll actually put my own email in there, just because I don't know if you've ever been in a situation like I have where you don't even mean to, but you do a shortcut and it sends the email, and then you're like, oh no, I didn't mean to do that. And so you don't want to be caught like that. I mean, worst case scenario, if you have it sent to yourself and you accidentally send it to yourself, all you have to do is then just pass it on to the right person. So I always feel like that's a good way to do it. And then own any mistakes. If you have some factual information wrong, or if you did misspell their name or something, own up to it. Hey, I'm sorry. I probably should have looked at that again. Be human about it. I think people appreciate that. So a credible source is concise, transparent, and factual. You also want to make it very easy on the reporter, journalist, creator, influencer. Include hyperlinks. Don't send attachments. A lot of times they'll get lost in the email security, or people, if you ever receive something with an attachment from someone you don't know, a lot of times you're just going to delete it anyway. You do want to make it personal. You don't want to send mass email pitches, because then that doesn't feel so personalized. You want to make a connection maybe ahead of time. You could either connect on LinkedIn or through social media. You want to have a little bit of research before you reach out to them, so you understand what type of writing they've done, what type of um, publications that they write for, and again, keep it short. One key objective with media relations is pitching a story to the right reporter at the right time, at the right outlet. So you want to email, you want to engage on social media, you want to follow up with a phone call, you want to make sure that you're answering any messages, or you can even respond to something they've posted that has nothing to do with you, just to show that you're interested. And then you want to also pitch before the press release, so it doesn't feel like you're just sending a press release and you only reach out to them when you need something. So you want to make sure there's some reciprocal there. And don't forget your ethics. So what is unethical? Well, you don't want to lie about any stats or what a product or service can do, or that you're the first. That's really a quick way to end that possible relationship. So just make sure that what you're sending is accurate and true. And you want to make your pitch as human as possible. I think that's where people really find that connection. You can get them to feel something behind that story. They're a lot more likely to engage with you. All right, so here's some additional tips. 5 additional tips with media relationships. Even if you don't necessarily have a specific story that you're trying to promote, check in once a quarter just to see what they're working on. Share some of their articles on your social channels, just to kind of show the love, especially if it's relevant. If somebody writes about family-friendly travel, even if it's not about your property, maybe there's something in there that someone can find especially helpful. Maybe it's a top 10 packing list, or do's and don'ts before traveling over a busy weekend, or something like that. You want to comment on their posts and articles, maybe connect with them on LinkedIn with a short note on why you want to connect and that you're excited to work with them. And then also, you could also make other connections. Hey, here's somebody else that you might want to reach out to. Maybe you've met somebody at the North Carolina Visit NC conference, and you feel like there might be another good relationship there, because that just shows that you care more holistically versus just your own personal gain. All right, timing, trends, and outlets. So timing, of course, matters. That's a big one. You if you have a situation where you need to get things approved before you can send it, you want to make sure you stay ahead of it, because the last thing you want to do is to fall behind the trend, so to speak, and then it's too late. People aren't interested. So timing matters. Understand what's happening in the news cycle, pay attention to the big events. 3 ways to know what's happening. You can make a calendar, you can set Google alerts, you can scan the headlines daily. It's really exciting to get or it's exciting to be able to be involved, but also make sure that it's the right publication for you. I remember at a property I worked at, I had somebody who reached out to me, and they had hundreds of thousands of followers, but it just was not our market. And so we just had to regrettably tell them it just wasn't a good fit. And we were fine with that, because we were just going to spend money. And unless we were going after their market, it just didn't make sense for us. All right, so here's 5 ways in determining the best media outlet. What do your customers read? Are they, think about their psychographs. Are they individuals that read a lot? And if they do, what are they reading? And what stories do they enjoy? And what stories does the media cover? And is that a good fit? And do they provide backlinks so that you can get some reputable links back to your website? Do they promote their articles on social media so that you might see something that is not only published, but then also on their social media to get a little extra love? Maybe they have a newsletter, and that's going to be included in there. And all of a sudden you've got, you have maybe a publication with not as big of an audience, but they do such a good job of amplifying their stories that it just makes sense to work with them. And you also don't want to necessarily cast just a wide net to all reporters, because not every reporter is going to want your story. And they also don't want to feel like you're trying to target too many, because they want to feel like they're the only one who are going to cover that story. All right, let's see. So now what about follow-up? So, okay, so say you've sent the pitch, everything was great. Now you haven't heard anything. Well, you want to wait a few days, so make sure that you're being somewhat patient. In your follow-up, you want to add some sort of value added, maybe some additional information that they don't have yet. So, hey, just wanted to send you a quick note. Also, I forgot to tell you in the last pitch, or whatever it is, this is something else that's coming up that we haven't even released yet, and that maybe they'll feel like there's something just for them in there. And don't pressure them. Sometimes no answer is the answer. And then if you're uncomfortable with answering a question, like if you don't know it, you could always tell them that, hey, can I get back to you? I want to find that out for you. Or if you're unable to answer the question right then, also see if it's okay if you follow up with them shortly. And then maybe you're not the right person. You could always get back to them and just say, hey, I'm going to have this person reach out to you, or I'm going to meet with this person, and then we'll get back to you with that answer. All right, y'all, you've been awesome and patient. Let's look at a few key takeaways as we wrap things up. 1, planning. That's such a big thing. Understanding what is newsworthy, understanding that you need to be guest ready before you start reaching out to the media. You want to choose the right spokespeople so that they're representing your brand. Some pitch writing mistakes. You want to make sure that you don't make them too long, so keep them concise. Get the reporter's name right. Avoid any buzzwords or things that aren't factual, and make sure you include hyperlinks and not attachments. Some media outreach. Make sure that you're sending concise emails to the right people and not just mass email pitches. Understand that relations take time also. I know sometimes you really want to get in a big publication, but it can take years. I mean, really, that's the reality of making that relationship work before they decide they want to come and do a story on you. That's still great. And then some communication. You want to make sure that you're being respectful of their time and their efforts, and follow up with intention, and just make sure that you're appreciative of all the things that they're doing. And then be ethical. Don't capitalize on other people's crisis. Stay in your lane. It's always good to promote others in your industry. I think that looks really good too. And keep that human element there as well.